you, guys. Thank you.
Bryan Trottier grew up in the town of Val-Marie, Saskatchewan, started playing hockey since he was a kid, and he went on to win 7 Stanley Cups, 4 with the New York Islanders, 2 with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and 1 as an assistant coach with the Colorado Avalanche. In 2017, there you go.
Thank you.
In 2017, the NHL named him one of the 100 greatest players in NHL history. So he lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania right now. You can interrupt me with as many claps as you want, whenever you want.
I like Pittsburgh. We got Pittsburgh in the audience. There we go.
And Scott Rintoul has been a fixture in sports broadcasting for the past 20 years, starting with at the iconic sports page before weaving Sportsnet and multiple sports radio stations into his resume. In addition to reporting on a vast array of local sports during that span, he's had the good fortune of covering a number of major sporting events, including multiple Grey Cups and Super Bowls, a Stanley Cup final, and the 2010 Olympics. Now, he is currently curating and hosting multiple podcasts, and he's also an instructor in BCIT's broadcast journalism program. So they're going to talk for about 40 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to questions from you. So start thinking of your questions for Bryan. Scott, take it away.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for being here tonight. Bryan Trottier, another round of applause. And Ever the Rancher, you wore your ranching hat.
Dad didn't go anywhere without it. And, we all go back to our roots. Yeah, I grew up on a ranch and all these cowboy hats and cowboy boots growing up. And I said, you know what? I'm back in my roots in Canada. I'm going cowboy hat, cowboy boots, belt buckle. I'm going back to the ranch roots.
Well, it's nice to have you on this side of the 49th. I'm wondering what you think when you fly into this city, though. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
The first game I played here in the old Pacific Coliseum, it was just, I can remember watching Hockey Night in Canada, and Vancouver was new in the league in the early 70s, and it was an exciting time to come out west. We played junior hockey out here against the Vancouver Gnats and the Victoria Cougars, so to be able to play in the Pacific Coliseum in a National Hockey League venue was just raises the hair on your arms and goosebumps and all that stuff. That's what always brings me back, was the first NHL game I ever played here. And now they got this brand new arena here. I wish I'd played in that big monster. Holy cow.
Well, you did okay in the other one as well.
Yeah, we did okay, yeah.
You did all right in 82 as well. I thought that was going to be your answer, but that's the third Stanley Cup.
I was the friendliest guy on the ice in 82. I want you all to know that. Like, my buddy Tiger was on the other side trying to break my neck. But Mike Bossy was a demon, holy cow, and Billy Smith and that, they you guys can hate them, but I was a friendly guy, I thought.
Well, and you guys, and you mentioned Mike Bossy, we'll get to him a little bit later. Yeah. Tiger Williams.
Yes.
I've read the book. Mm-hmm. Many people in this room may have as well, or they will after this. You and Tiger Williams are best friends, which defies expectation, I think.
50 years.
How did you two become such tight blood brothers, as he calls you?
Well, met him, I was 14 years old, so 52 years ago. I met Tiger at a hockey camp, Stan Dunn's hockey camp in Swift Current, and he was bigger than life, and he was one of the instructors. I was one of the kids that was attending the camp. So I was a camper, and I had a 2 week, I was going to be going 2 weeks. The first week, it was fantastic. We had Tiger and all these guys from the International Hockey League that played for the Broncos that were back, and they were pros, Giroux, and I'm trying to remember some of the other names, and the Pinder brothers were there, and Tiger was fantastic. He barked at me a little bit, which was really always fun, but he had this reputation of being a scrappy guy, scrappy junior hockey player, and you could see he was really intense. I kind of gravitated to that a little bit, and maybe he liked that. I don't know, but the second week, they made me one of his helpers, and I loved it because I got to kind of be his little puppy dog and followed him around all the time. He was fantastic. And then the following year, I went to camp, made the team, and we kind of remembered each other, and he took me under his wing and just kind of like, hey, let's do this, practice this together. And so we stayed out on the ice after practice quite a bit, and it was really fun having that kind of big brother around. It was kind of showing me the ropes of junior hockey.
Well, and you two ended up playing together, obviously, and playing on the same line. And he says that you were so talented that you're a big reason that he made the NHL. And you say that he's a big reason you made the NHL because you might have ended your career without him.
It's in the book, but it's really kind of a wonderful defining moment in anybody's career. We always have that person that comes into your life maybe at the right time or just turns you in a direction that you really didn't anticipate. But I was done hockey. So anyway, hockey wasn't fun as a 16-year-old when you're 5'6", 160 pounds playing against 20-year-olds that are like 6'2", 220 pounds.
Some of us are still built like that, actually.
Well, I don't know if you got ragdolled like I did, but every game in the Western Hockey League in those days was either a line brawl or a bench clearing brawl at one point during the game. And it wasn't hockey to me. It was just like I was getting beat up all the time. I'm going to school with a black eye and a fat lip, and it was kind of embarrassing. And I wasn't a big enough guy. I could kind of like try to throw a kind of a noogie punch or whatever, but it just seemed like I was getting thumped all. It wasn't fun. At Christmas time, I was going home, and I was only 70 miles from home. So Dad came up and brought me home for Christmas, and all the way home, I'm thinking, God, this is going to be a great Christmas. Mom's going to make all my favorite food. Maybe I'm just not going to go back and play junior hockey. I was starting to think of all these things. Maybe I'll just stay in town. I'll play senior hockey or go back to school in Valmarie. Yeah, that'll be a lot more fun. This hockey's not hockey. It's just like kind of like fighting and scrapping all the time. And I'm not playing very much. I'm fourth line and playing like 4 or 5 minutes a game, and it's just not fun. And so I kind of talked myself into it. I didn't tell Mom and Dad, but and everything was great. Christmas was great. Mom had all the great food, the turkey and all that fun stuff. And we had a game on Boxing Day, and so we had to get up the morning of the 26th and get back to Swift Current, which Dad said, but we should get on the road here about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock latest. Weather's not that good, and we had to be back in Swift Current by noon. And I hummed and hawed, and pretty soon now it's 9 o'clock. And I'm not sure, Dad. Are you not feeling good? I don't know, Dad. I don't know. And now it's like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. The phone rings. It's Stan Dunn, the coach. He goes, "Hi, Brian." Oh, Dad picks up. He goes, "Yeah, Brian's right here." I'm like, "Oh man, I got to talk to the coach." He goes, "How you feeling? You're going to be here?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. We'll hold the bus if you're on your way." "No, I'm not sure. "Okay, practice tomorrow, 10:30. I'm like, "All right." He knows I'm not coming. Boom, I'm out of this. I'm not going to practice tomorrow. I'm good. I'm done. Dad goes, "You should go back." I'm like, "I don't know, Dad." And I just never said yes or no. I just really stayed really in that kind of that gray area, I guess. I really didn't want to make. Anyway, go to sleep that night, and I'm dreaming about playing senior hockey back in Valmarie. And 7 o'clock in the morning, snowstorm, Tiger Williams shows up in a GTO with mag tires. I had no clue. I get up, I'm kind of sleepy-eyed. Mom answers the door. "Hi, Tiger, how are you?" "Hi, Mary. Yeah, I'm good. Want some coffee? Yeah. Want some breakfast? Yeah, I'll have some eggs, yeah, whatever." And I'm like, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "I came to get you." I'm like, I don't think I'm going back. "Oh, you're going back." And then I'm like, "No, I don't think so." And now they just start having breakfast, and they're talking, they're having coffee. Like, I'm not even there, and I'm getting mad. I'm like, "Tiger, I'm not going back." "Oh, if I have to hog tie you, I'll put you in that car." I'm like, "I'm not going back." And he finishes breakfast. He goes, "Well, let's go." And I said, "I'm not going." And Dad, for whatever reason, just kind of looked up, and he's got his coffee, and he looks up and he goes, "You can always come home." And those words just kind of hit me, and I was like, because I was so homesick too. I was like, I would like being home. Only 70 miles, but I was like, I can always come home. And next thing you know, I'm in the car with Tiger, and we're going through the snowstorm back to Swift Current. There's guys in the ditch. We couldn't stop. We're slipping and sliding down the road, and we get north just past Cadillac, but in the road gets a little bit better, and he starts telling me, he goes, "I'm put a left wing with you for the rest of the year. No one's going to touch you. You're going to, and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, right." And that's exactly what happened. If somebody even looked at me, he'd just beat the crap out of him. Like, "What was that about?" He goes, "I owed that guy." I was like, "He didn't do anything to me." "I didn't like the way he looked at you." And hockey was fun again. We started putting up some numbers. Like, I was playing more often. It was just great. And he taught me how to grapple. He taught, like, every day after practice, he'd take me on the ice and he'd say, like, "Okay, do this, and tie the guy up this way." And all of a sudden, we get in these line brawls, and I wasn't afraid anymore. And guys were big guys, and they were doing all the work. And I'd say, "You ain't scaring me. I'd wrestle with Tiger every day." And if I figured if I could wrestle with Tiger, I could handle these guys. And it was great. So yeah, if anybody like Tiger would have made it, because he would take all the time. Like we stayed probably an hour and a half after practice every day and worked on something. But we worked with a purpose. Today we're going to work on this. We're going to work. So I needed that to help me. But on top of that, he always said, well, I need you to help me. So like, I think we kind of pushed and pulled each other. He was going to find a way to get the NHL. I was going to find a way to get to the NHL. I think both of us had that strong desire. So I think we worked well together to kind of pull each other to get to where we had to go. But I needed a big brother, and I had that friend right at the right time that had to get down that snowstorm. GTO mag wheels and found a way, dragged me back Swift Current. In Dad's words, you always come home. All those things just kind of hit me right at the right time, I guess.
Well, that relationship and the strength of it does certainly come through in the pages of this book. And one of the great things about this book is that there's a number of themes that emerge, and one certainly is the personal relationships with people you've had in your lives, with friends, with family, and another one, I guess that's a Vancouver connection and also Saskatchewan connection, is Willie Desjardins.
Willie.
Why did you and Willie Desjardins hit it off at such a young age and remain such good friends to this day?
Willie and I we played against each other from the time we were like 8, 9 years old. So our little hometown had minor hockey when I turned 8. So we finally had hockey, like we had a team, and we go to Climax, which was Mom's hometown, and Willie was on that team, and they were so good and they had matching uniforms, which intimidated us. And they let the Boston Bruins, like, oh my God, they all skate so good, and they got matching uniform. We looked like a bunch of ragtags. I had a maroon outfit. Another guy had a home Toronto. Another guy had a away Montreal. One guy had a parka. We might have had a helmet. Some guys had a toque. It was just comical, our little, but the pictures in the book, and it's really kind of fun to be able to think about this. But Willie was a stud on that Climax team. Like, he could skate, stick handle, score. His wrist shot was uncanny. So when I got to play, they pulled me over to Climax to play some tournaments. We went to Weyburn one year, Yorkton, and we played some midget tournaments, and I got to play with, he was Mike Bossy. He was my Mike Bossy before I had Mike Bossy. He could score, and his passes were always great, and he's fast, and he was fearless on the ice. He wasn't the biggest guy, but he was fearless. And boy, you need those kind of guys on a team. And he kind of made us all play a little bit better because he's a year younger than I was too. And I'm like, how can this little guy be that good and that fierce? And I got to keep up to this guy. And so again, you have another buddy that you kind of grow up with. And when he went to Moose Jaw, I went to Moose Jaw we went to the training camp. I think it was like 72. And I was 14 or something, I was 70. He stayed in Moose Jaw, and Dad broke his leg, so I had to come home. I was kind of happy because, again, 14 years old, you're playing against 18-year-olds in junior hockey. It wasn't fair, but Willie stayed that whole year, and good on him. I wish I would have stayed with him. In one sense, I was kind of happy to go home. In another, because, again, I would have been homesick that much earlier, but so Willie stayed there, and I went back home, and then we went to camp in Swift Current. He went back to Moose Jaw again. He played a couple of years in Moose Jaw, and I'm like, Willie, come play here. Like, you can blank this team. He goes, no, I like it here because I'm getting a lot of ice time in Swift Current. I don't want to get much ice time. He was right because I didn't play that much that year, but it was nice having Willie around because he was absolutely a great player, a great teammate, and just one of those guys that, again, that's in your life, and you stay friends forever because you have that bond as a kid, and all of a sudden you're 15, 16 years old, and our paths, he went on to play for the Huskies. I went on to the NHL. We always stayed in touch. All those guys from Climax and Valmaria, I stayed in touch with all those guys. And they'd call me, oh yeah, you're doing good or whatever. And they were kind of like happy for me, a little bit jealous, I'm sure. But all of us were going to make the NHL at some point. We all thought we were going to be in it. But we're all still buddies. Yeah, Willie and the whole crew from Climax and Valmaria, we're all still good buds. They've known me the longest. They know my good and bad, and they still like me. I don't know why.
Well, you mentioned Mike Bossy there as well, and you do not know this. I have not had many hockey jerseys in my life. My first one was a Mike Bossy jersey, in fact, when I was a real little kid. My dad had met your other line mate, Clark Gillies, at some point and had hit it off with him and really admired him. And so I ended up watching, as a young boy, a lot of Islanders hockey. So I watched a lot of your teams. And those were your two line mates, Clark Gillies, Mike Bossy. You guys had so much success together with that line. What was it about those two and you combining? Where did that chemistry come from, both on and off the ice?
Scott, I love this question, but I really got to pay my respects to my buds because we lost them both here this year. And we lost Clarky in early January and then Mike late March, early April. And I miss them, and it's still pretty raw for me. But at the same time, I love to honor them. I love to talk about them because they're not only great hockey players I played with, but really, really good friends and good people. So let me talk about Clarkie first, because I met Clark when didn't meet him. I played ball against him when I was 15. He was 17. He played for the Moose Jaw team, and I had a 6-game tryout for the Swift Current Indians. And he played third base and catcher, and he had 2 rockets. He was 17 years old. He's like a man-child. He was like the perfect, he looked like the Marlboro Man, like just perfect build. Like he looked like an athlete, like V-shaped, muscular. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'd heard about this Clark Gillies. He had 2 bombs that day. I think one's still circling the earth. I think it went out of the ballpark so fast. But he was and a gentleman, like a natural-looking athlete. And then the next year, I played some junior hockey against him. So I'm like, he's with Regina Pats, and I'm with the Swift Current Broncos. And I hit him on the ice. I felt like a flea hitting an elephant. And I said, oh my God, this guy's a monster. But I hit him one time. It's in the book. I hit him one time so hard. Ian McPhee hit him one. I hit him the other way. We kind of sandwiched him and knocked him down. We got up, and he looked at me through his eyebrows. And I'm face to face, like right here. And I'm like, and he goes, I am going to take off your effing head. I'm like, oh, got to catch me first. I'm out of here. But you talk about, he was the ultimate power forward before there was the term power forward of his generation. So he could do everything: stick handle, heavy shot, shoot, pass, forecheck, fight, scrap. And without him on our left side, people would have taken liberties on Mike and I. We could just kind of do our thing, and he would, if anybody even bothered us, he was my Tiger Williams. He just kind of settled things down. I'm in a stare down, I guess I call it, because I'm bumped guys, and next thing you know, Jim Schoenfeld from Buffalo Sabres and Jerry Korab, King Kong Korab's coming at me. I'm like, I got to fight one of these monsters. And I bump into Clark, and I turn around, and my face is right in the Islander crest. I look up at me, he goes, everything okay? And those 2 guys turned away. I said, they are now, thanks. So it's good having his presence. He was just a great presence. So we love that part about him, but that wasn't the main thing. He was just a great player, and he made things happen. And he would bring us. Mike was a rookie, and he came down. He missed the net twice, and he tried to go for the far corner of the net, and the puck missed the net and went around the boards, and now we're back checking. Clark and I are driving the net, and he missed the net. Hit the net, Mike, like so we get a rebound or something. But he missed the net twice, and we came back to the bench, and Clark goes, you missed the net one more effing time, and I'm going to take off your effing head. And Mike goes, is he serious? I said, oh yeah, he's serious. But Clark had that big man presence in a locker room, and the funniest man you ever want to meet. Loved to tell jokes, loved to sing. So I played guitar, and Clark was my singer. He loved Johnny Cash and Folsom Prison. He liked The Gambler, Kenny Rogers. So all I had to do was play guitar and let Clarky, use the microphone and sing. So I miss him dearly for a whole bunch of reasons. And then there's Mike. He was the purest goal scorer. I think the history of the NHL, in my mind. I don't think his goals per game, I think, will never be matched. I think Mario is the closest one he has. That I think it's like almost a goal a game but I think Mario's pretty close. But he's the purest goal scorer I think that ever played. But uncanny ability to just find the net. Like you put it on a stick, he turned and shoot, and the puck went in. So he needed that,
Harold Snaps found him.
don't let an error pass hit his stick. But anyway, that goal, that's just a typical Mike Boss. Hit his stick, boom, it's gone. King Richard, top shelf. I mean, that's a bullet, and that's goal scorers just do that, and that's to Mike's credit. And I just always say to myself, he would. Deceptive skater, speed, deceptive stick handler, deceptive passer, but he was great at all of those things and took great pride. Faster than people thought, stronger than people thought, and he wanted to contribute, and he wanted to find ways to help the team. So fast forward to he had been retired for like 7 or 8 years, hadn't skated for about 3 or 4 years, and now we have the battle of the big line. So we go down to Tampa Bay, and he goes, I don't think I want to play. I said, why not? He goes, I haven't skated for 3 or 4 years, and my back this and my knee this. I'm like, shut up, you're coming? So we take the Triple Crown line from Los Angeles Kings, which is Dion, Simmer, and Taylor. And we got the Montreal Canadiens line of Mahovlich, Schutt, and Lafleur. We've got the French Connection line of Perreault, Martin, and Gilbert, Perreault, Martin, Robert, and Perreault. And then we've got our line, the Trio Grande. So the Trio Grande line, who was named by Clark Gillies, so they're going to have a competition. They said, okay, your line really kind of kicked off here. We played an exhibition game in New Haven, right at the end of the training camp. Mike got a hat trick. We all end up with like 4 points each, and we stuck out for the rest of the year. And about 3 games into the season, they said, we got to get a name for this line. They had the gag line, they've got the French Connection, they got all these names. We got to get a name for your line. Clarkie stood up, and big man, he goes, no, there's not going to be any contest. Just call us the Trio Grande, just like out of a John Wayne movie, and the name stuck. So we got our Trio Grande line down at this Tampa Bay tournament, Battle of the Big Lines. And somehow our line ends up against the French Connection in the final. Mike scores 7 or 8 goals, and scores the winning goal. 20 seconds to go in the game. It's one of those typical Mike Bossy on the stick, turns, shoots it, goes for everybody's legs, past the goalie before he moves. And we're shaking hands at the end, and Gilbert Perreault comes up to me. He's got a big, thick accent. He goes, Bryan, I think the Mike Bossy come out the vagina scoring the goal. I said, I think you're right. But Mike was just a fantastic goal scorer.
Yeah, he most certainly was. That's a great story. Those Islander teams, we could just run down the roster and tell stories all night. I'm going to ask you about the goaltender, though. I actually heard Wayne Gretzky on a podcast this week, and he was asked point blank, who's the toughest goalie you ever faced? And he didn't just mean fighting, he meant toughest to beat. And he said Billy Smith.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
And you said that he's the best money goaltender you've ever seen in hockey. Does he actually get underappreciated for his goaltending because he was such a feisty fighter and competitor?
He didn't like the nickname Battlin' Billy. He didn't like that name. He thought he was a competitor. And if you put money on the line, it was for real. And he didn't like sometimes the guys would say at practice, like, okay, let's everybody throw $20 in the pot. He goes, guys, if it's $20, I'm going to play for real. And you knew, because I back-checked, and again, all this fun stuff is in the book, which is really kind of fun, but I was back-checking one time on Steve Schutt. I went right into the crease, like we're taught, take him right to the net. I'm trying to keep him away from our net and the puck, keep myself between him and the puck. And I get into the crease, my ankle goes numb. And I get a whistle blows. I'm like, Smitty, that was me you whacked. He goes, get out of my crease. They come in my crease, they're mine. I'm like, okay, no problem. So, against the Edmonton series, obviously, I think he accidentally whacked a couple of their players because they got a little too close to his crease. They told me it was an accident anyway. But I hired Smitty, and this is a fun story, not in the book. I hired Smitty to be my goaltender coach. I was doing a camp up in Midland, Ontario. I said, Smitty, would you come into town and work the goalies? I said, I need a goaltender coach. We got these 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. I said, we got like 8 or 9 of them. Can you come in and work the goalies? And Smitty said, sure, I'll come in for a couple of days. I said, perfect. I said, go down, warm the goalies up. I'll be down 5 minutes. I'll warm up the defense, and you pick the first drill. I thought he was going to pick a shooting drill. No, he picks the poke check drill. So he sets up a cone. I bring all the defensive forwards down there. He's talking to his goalies now. He goes, okay, kids, when they come around that cone, they're going to have their head down. When they have their head down, I want you to come out of the net and poke check the puck off their stick. If you miss their stick, go for their skates. If you miss their skates, whack them in the back of the leg when they come by. I said, Smitty, you can't say this to 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds. These kids are just smiling, eh? And I think those kids were missing pucks and sticks. They just wanted to whack somebody. We had kids laying on the ice crying. Smitty's like, get up off the ice, you're not hurt. The parents love that drill. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get sued.
That is great.
That is Smitty.
And there's, as you mentioned, there's some great stories about Smitty in the book and about those Islander teammates. But one of the other themes that emerges to me in the book, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that is, proud as you are about those accomplishments and those teammates, you are much more proud of your family than you are anything else. That seems to bleed through the pages of this book. What was it about Buzz and Mary, your parents, in your mind, that made them such great parents, Bryan?
we all love our parents. I think we're all proud of where we come from. We're all proud of our heritage. My parents wanted me to be proud of, I wanted to reflect who they were, their principles, their values, how they treat people. I watched them. I watched how they treat their neighbors, and I watched how they were respected, and I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be my mom and dad. I wanted to make them proud too, and I wanted to kind of behave properly and always kind of be the good neighbor. And watching them, and my mother's Irish, dad was Cree Chippewa Métis, and they made me feel proud of my heritage. They made me feel proud of, we didn't have any money, our little ranch, and we had good horses, we had good cows, we ate 3 meals a day, we had lots of potatoes. Mom's Irish, we had tons of potatoes. That potato patch, I hated that thing, but lots of weeds, lots of hilling, but I ate lots of potatoes. But it was really kind of fun growing up in their care, because they were just really good nurturers, really good mentors, and they're basically your idols, because that's who teaches you all your early years. And really, the book is really, I think, just reflects well, and I think it's a testimony to my parents, and kind of thanks them as much as anything, because All Roads Home is just kind of reflects my parents, my heritage, my Canadian roots, and everything else. And I was in New York. I live in Pittsburgh, and went to Colorado for a while, won a few things. But it's really kind of cool to be able to know that all this reflects on my little Canadian roots and my mom and dad. So it's really a kind of a testament, tribute to my parents.
Well, you talk about the farm and the ranch, and you call your dad a horse trader, literally in the book, a guy who could trade things and make a deal at any moment, and helped you negotiate your first contract, didn't he?
It's one of my favorite stories. So we're in, I'm 17 years old, okay, and I'm going to be turning 18 in July, so I actually qualified for the underage draft. It's the first year of the underage draft, because WHA was stealing 18-year-olds and signing them to contracts. So Dennis Sobchak, great junior hockey player, signed $1 million deal. And so the NHL said, okay, we're going to go after the 18-year-olds too. So if your birthday fell before, I think it was September 1st, you're eligible for the NHL draft. The WHA offered me a contract, $500,000 for 10 years. It was like $50,000 more money than my parents would ever see. But to Dad's credit, he goes, okay, we're going to find an agent, and we're going to see what they said. So we interviewed a bunch of agents, and he said, okay, we're going to the NHL draft. WHA said, if you go to the NHL draft, we're going to pull a contract. I didn't care. I'm like, yeah, pull a contract. I want a Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup's in NHL, not the WHA, but it's still a lot of money. Anyway, but the WHA and the NHL aren't really talking, so when I got drafted by the NHL, my agent said, don't tell him that the WHA is pulling a contract. I said, I'm not saying anything, whatever. And so the next thing you know, Bill Torrey's calling, and he says, congratulations, you drafted you second round, we're going to bring you to Montreal, we're going to offer you a contract. I'm like, wow, they're taking a chance on this kid. I'm like, this is pretty exciting. Mom, Dad, we're going to Montreal. I said, you guys are coming because you have to sign the contract. I'm not 18 till July. I can sign the contract later, but you guys have to sign the contract. Dad goes, remember, we're not signing the contract. We're going to go home and think about it. We get on the plane, first class, Regina to Montreal. Clark Gillies is first round draft choice. He's in the back with Earl Ingerfield. I'm jealous of him sitting next to Earl Ingerfield, an NHL guy, and Clark's jealous of me sitting in first class because he wants to sit up. I'm like, hey, whatever. Mom and Dad on the way out, the dad's ready. Like, we're not signing the contract. We're going to go home and think about it. I'm like, all right, we got a plan. This is great. First class, free booze. Mom and Dad get bombed. And they're drinking. They don't realize it till we land. And Mom gets up, woohoo, she's giggling. I'm feeling a little tipsy here. But this is how fast it happens. They're trying to shake the cobwebs. We go down the escalator into the car, grab our luggage, and zoom over to the agents, up the elevator, and there's Bill Torrey with the bow tie on. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Trottier. Now he turns all his attention to me. Brian, we got a 5-year contract for you. We're going to be $100,000, $110,000, $120,000, $150,000, $250,000 contract, signing bonus, and a car of your choice. My dad goes, where's the pen? I'm like, I said, what happened to the plan? He goes, they're crazy to offer. That's way more money than Cincinnati offered you. Anyway, now they look at me and they go, what kind of car do you want? And I'm looking, I'm like, I didn't think about this. I never thought I was going to get a free car. And I'm like, and I'm sure they're thinking, oh, is he going to get a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, some sports car, a Mercedes? I look at my mom and dad, I said, I think they need a big car. The biggest car I could think of at that moment was a Chrysler New Yorker. That was the biggest car at the time. I said, Chrysler New Yorker. And so I get a Chrysler New Yorker, 1974 Chrysler New Yorker Brougham, beautiful car, leather interior, all the bells and whistles. I go to New York the following year. I drove it to Lethbridge that year and drove it around a little bit. And I give the keys to mom and dad the next year. I go to New York, said, thank you guys, thank you for everything, it's your car. Mom and dad, okay, thank you, this is awesome, they're great. Anyway, I come back that spring, the car's gone. I'm like, what happened to the car? Dad says, oh, I couldn't fit my music instruments in it. I had to trade it in for a Ford van, a 67 Ford van. I'm like, how well, it's your car? Dad's a horse trader. He upgraded, I figured. I don't know. Shag rug in there, all the music. That was great.
Well, and that's a nice segue into another passion of yours, which is music. And that's something that, as detailed in the book, has been passed down in your family. Your dad was a musician as well. Speaking to you just before we came out here, I mentioned the word music and your face lights up, country music. What is it about music that, for you, gets you up in the morning, makes you smile, brings out that passion that you have, Bryan?
I don't know. We woke up to music every morning. Dad had a guitar, accordion, and that was our wake-up call. It was like he's mom making breakfast, he's playing guitar or accordion, and that was our wake-up call every day. And we got to hear those songs all the time. They'd turn on CKCK radio or CKRM radio in Regina, and we heard country music. So we heard all those songs all the time. And Dad always had a band. Traditional country music, Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, Willie Nelson. And so we knew all these songs. And then when I turned 14, Dad strapped a bass guitar on me. He says, okay, these 3 chords, C, F, and G, learn them because you're going to follow my fingers tonight. You're in the band. I'm like, okay. And there's a big old bass guitar, and I'm following his fingers all night long. He goes, okay, now you got to sing a song. So I'm singing a song, trying to play this big bass guitar. But I had a blast, I got to learn music and be in a band at a really young age. And my sister Kathy, she would come up and sing songs, and it was really fun learning all the harmonies and that kind of fun stuff. So then the family, we always had gatherings, and everybody could play an instrument. Grandma corded the piano, my aunts played the piano, so there was lots of music in the family. It was really kind of a lot of fun. Every kid had to sing a song. My brother Rocky sang Daisy, 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 and we still tease him about it. Anyway, but we all had a song, and so my song was Truck Driving Man, and so going on stage with Dad, learning all that fun stuff. So it really became my dad's legacy, because he taught nephews, nieces, everybody got to sing songs, and but my earliest memory of music was as a grandchild, and my grandpa loved to play the fiddle. He was Métis, and he loved to play the Métis jigs and the old-time waltzes. He'd have his eyes closed playing and Grandma would be cording the piano, and I think she did it on purpose, but she'd hit a sour note, and Grandpa would whack her with the bow. When you're a kid, that's the funniest part of the whole thing, like, hit her again, Grandpa. And she'd look at us and wince a little bit. I don't think he hit her very hard, but anyway, that was my earliest memory of music. But there's lots of that kind of music, the family music, the band, and then just fast forwarding again, like when Dad passed away, someone had to take over his position of rhythm guitar, so I had to teach myself how to play rhythm guitar. I knew the chords. I just had to teach all my fingers how to play, because it's hard to play bass around a campfire. But you can play a little guitar around a campfire. So now my kids are all playing instruments. My daughter Lindsay's here, everybody. Lindsay, she's here from San Diego. She's self-taught. She got her singing and playing guitar. My son plays guitar. My daughter Taylor plays piano. And my youngest son plays saxophone, but we're getting him on a guitar here one of these days. But it's really kind of fun to have that family music and just the tradition of Dad's legacy kind of continuing on. So yeah, it's a big part of our life.
Well, and I know you've been known to pick up a guitar or an instrument at a team function as well. I actually called one of your former players that you coached, because you did some coaching as well, head coaching, assistant coaching as well. And I was asking what kind of coach you were. We can get to that in a second, but he said, yeah, he picked up a guitar one time at a team function. Guys were like, he's pretty good. He can really go on that thing.
I can fudge pretty good, yeah, but I always look for singers, so that's where my buddy Clark Gillies kind of came in, and it's really kind of fun because music kind of brings people together. And we were doing a function way up north in Mackenzie Delta, a little town called Inuvik, and they had a little after-school place where all the kids could go, and they had computers, and they had pool table and ping pong table and some musical things. And it needed some help. There weren't enough pool balls, or the computers were kind of. So we're trying to put all these things together for these kids as best we could. We're up there with Schlumberger, and the place was kind of mayhem. The kids were kind of. It was loud. There's nothing. So I said, I'll pull the guitar down. Started tuning it up, and I started strumming it. And all the kids started coming down and sitting down and listening. And I said, they go, play us a song. And I'm like, okay, does anybody know Country Roads? You guys got to sing with me. And I started singing and playing the guitar, and they all started singing. All these kids, these Nuviala and Inuit children, and they're singing and they're smiling, and the place just kind of like settled right down, and that music does that. And this one little boy came up, and he put his ear on the guitar while I was strumming, and his sister came, or I thought it was his sister, came up, pulled him back in, sat him down. I said, does he always do that? She goes, no, he's deaf. He just wants to feel the music on his face. And I was like, oh my God, that was like one of those moments where you say music, it really kind of brings people together. So it was really kind of, and that's what, kind of a special little story.
Well, a lot of the different facets of your life bring people together. Sports brings people together. Music brings people together. Family, obviously, is what we use to connect us as well. How do you think the former player I called described you as a coach?
Just the same way I played. Probably the friendliest guy he ever met.
It's pretty accurate,
Same
actually.
way I played.
It's
just
actually
a friendly
pretty
guy.
accurate. You didn't play that way all the time, but that's actually how he described you. He said that he almost never got mad. He's a pretty positive guy, but if he did get mad, then you knew you'd actually really screwed up. That's what he said. But he could tell how much you loved coaching. A lot of great players don't make great coaches or don't even want to get into it. What was it about coaching that appealed to you?
Well, I didn't know if I wanted to go into coaching, but I talked to enough people, and because Craig Patrick called me, I said, have you ever thought about being player coach? You'll make the transition. You can coach, you can play. And I was like, I don't know if I'd rather just play, or I'd rather just coach. He goes, well, this is a good transition. Think about it. So I started calling people that had done some player coaching, Bob Gainey, Bobby Clark, and they said, it's the closest thing you'll get to playing hockey. Like if you're a coach, you're in the action, you'll get adrenaline, you'll beat, you have a little something to do with the outcome of the game. You'll really enjoy it, and I think you'll be great at it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But once I got involved, it took me a while to get into it because I think what happens to a lot of players is like you want to be able to get out there, and that play is so easy. Why don't you just do this? That pass is so easy. Bobby Orr told me, he said, like, I couldn't understand why they couldn't pass it over that guy's stick between that guy's legs to a guy going 40 miles an hour down the wall, right on his stick every time, because it's Bobby Orr. Joe Sakic would say, oh yeah, I called him Miracle Joe because he could make that low percentage play most of the time. And I couldn't, it took me a while to understand, like, these players can't do that. It's not because they don't want to, it's just that they don't have quite that ability. So you learn to coach within their ability. And that was the fun part for me, was be able to like work with players and understand that, okay, here's his strengths, here's what he can't do, let's really magnify his strengths, and let's work on some of these things that he's got to work on, whether it's stick skills or passing skills or whatever. And that was the joy I got out of it, because players that had played in the league for a long time, like Adam Foote, for example, never played the power play before. I said, Adam, you got a great half slapper. We're putting you on the power play. He goes, I don't know if I can play. I said, oh, you can play. And he lit up, and I just brought another dimension to his game. And it's one of the reasons all of a sudden we had a second power play. We had Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, on the first power play with Rob Blake and Ray Bourque. On the second power play, we had Chris Drury, Alex Tanguay, and Milan Hajduk with Adam Foote. And he was pounding these pucks, and these kids were just having a blast playing with a guy who loved to shoot. And now we had 2 power plays, so it was great. So when you see the guys light up like that, and you feel like you had a little something to do with changing or adding a dimension to their game, it's special. And when all of a sudden you're raising the Stanley Cup with these guys in a suit, and you didn't bleed, you didn't score a goal, you didn't block a shot, you didn't get bruised, and you have another appreciation for this, and all of a sudden they're coming up and thanking me, I'm like, no, thank you. They're like, no, thank you, coach. We're like, Okay, we're kind of thanking each other here to death, but thank you. You kind of feel like, hey, thank you for appreciating what a little bit I had to do with us winning the Stanley Cup. Man, it's special.
Well, that was your 7th. You won 2 with the Penguins as well, and you talk about the great players in Colorado. There was Mario, there was Yager, Stevens, Coffey. Go down the list in Pittsburgh. We talked about some of those names from those Islanders teams. 7 Cups in 28 years and 6 in the 18 years that you played as well. One of the other things that strikes me in this book, it doesn't matter if you're talking about Mario, Jean Beliveau, Gordie Howe, go down the list of great players, you never seem to talk about yourself on that level, yet you're one of the greatest 100 players of all time. You're a Hall of Famer, you have over 1,400 points. Did you ever consider yourself in that same class? Did you ever think about yourself that way?
It's nice. It's nice that people, whether they're reporters or fans or hockey fans, but I never think of it in terms of me. I always think of it in terms of teams. So they're not my fans. They're hockey fans. They're Islander fans. They're people who appreciate the game of hockey. They're really the fun thing for me. I didn't have a lot of dynamic in my game. I wasn't a Gilbert Perreault, stick handle to everybody down the ice. I wasn't a pure goal scorer, although I scored 500 some goals, and I wasn't like a nifty little Rabbi-Doo kind of player. I just was a give and go guy, like the soft pick, like to find little angles, go to the net, push pucks to guys that, that were open. And it kind of had a really good effect with the team. I think players like it. I really enjoyed my role. It was a role of kind of like glue, where you kind of put people together and kind of hold them together, and then kind of work the room a little bit and kind of make everybody feel appreciated and those kinds of things, which I think has good momentum, good traction, and that helps teams win. Because it wasn't about me. I want to try and find a way to contribute to a team's success, but I wanted to win. Yeah, if I scored a goal, great. If I end up with 5 goals that night that helped the team win, great. But if I could help another guy score, great. But I wanted to win the hockey game. That was my bottom line. I wanted the big trophy at the end. Yeah, the scoring championship was wonderful. I mean, tribute to the team and the guys I played with and players I played with on the line. Clark and Mike and our power play, Dennis Potvin and Al Arbor throwing me out, double shifting and that kind of stuff. But it wasn't the big prize. It wasn't that Stanley Cup, and that's the one I wanted. And every team, I say, I played 18 years, coached for another 10. That's 28 years, and I only have 7 Stanley Cups. That's 21 losing years. Because I bumped into Henry Richard.
This city doesn't even have 1. Okay.
I know. But I bumped into Henry Richard at they had an event for him. He was being honored at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, and it's a black tie affair. And there's Henry Richard in the corner, all by himself. Nobody talking to him. I'm like, oh my God, that's Henry Richard. He's the man of our here. I got to go say hello. Henry Richard, Bryan Trottier, congratulations, wonderful career, 11 Stanley Cups. Your brother has 10. Wow, that's fantastic. 21 Stanley Cups in your family. What a career. He looks up at me, he's guarding his scotch like it's gold, and he looks, and he's a little thick French accent. He goes, Brian, it should have been 12. We should have beat those Maple Leafs in 67. He was still mad about it. And I was like, yeah, we should have beat those Oilers in 84 too, dang it. Those creepy Oilers.
Well,
we love those guys.
Before we get to the audience questions, which are coming next, so if you have a question, we will take some from the audience in just a second. You've shared some funny stories. I'm going to maybe end on a touching one. Everybody's reading these books and they're getting your stories. I want to know what it was like for you to get to page 267 and read the acknowledgement your daughter wrote and what she wrote about you and what that meant to you.
Whew, I'll try. So this is a wonderful book. It's a monster in one sense, because when we wrote the manuscript, it was thick. Scott was about 1,400 pages. I mean, it was double spaced and everything, but we had to read that a couple times. We had to condense it, do all that stuff. My daughter's a journalism major, and she was my. If I didn't have a right hand, I had a left hand, and she was fantastic. So I'd run all these. So she was fantastic. So I asked her at the end. I said, Lindsay, would you kind of write? I called it the prologue, kind of something in the book that kind of describes your dad a little bit. And because I said, it's hard for me to talk about me. Like, you describe me to what you would, how you would think you'd, and so what she wrote, I mean, I've read it probably 200 times, and it makes me cry every time because she knocked it out of the ballpark. But what's really kind of fun for me is to be able to look at my children and say, they're just wonderful parents. They've given me this joy that I probably would have never had in life. And I got to experience this with my oldest daughter. So, yeah, it's special. It was a wonderful journey.
It is. We can take a few questions from the audience. Does anyone out there have a question? We got one right here in front. First hand to go up. We'll get to you next, sir.
Did you have chemistry with Mike, like, right out of the gate? Because you guys were just, like, automatic almost.
It was wonderful because we went through the whole training camp. I played against Mike. I played with him the last game of an exhibition game in New Haven, and we clicked. He ended up getting a hat trick, and we all got like 4 points. Clark Gillies played the left side. And there was a certain camp, we felt it right away. And yes, you need that, and you need that wonderful yin and yang. He wanted the puck, and I like giving it to him. And he was an underrated playmaker. He was an underrated passer, deceptive skater, like speed, powerful, stronger than people thought. And he had this uncanny knack just to find that open ice. And I like to just kind of put it into an area of open ice. And I'd say, God, I hope Mike is right about there. And sure enough, he'd find that. And without that magic, or without that kind of that innate thought, like goal scorer playmakers have, whether he was passed to me or I was passing to him, we kind of fed off each other. And then we'd talk about it because we were roommates. And we'd talk about it after the game, or we'd come back to the bench and say, oh, I just missed you there, but next time, and it was really kind of fun to be able to have that kind of communication and that friendship and that bond that happens because of that. Because we had a lot of the same likes, we had a lot of the same humor, and we found silliness in things, or we found excitement in things, and same programs on TV, same foods. So there's all those similarities. I was from Saskatchewan, he's from Quebec. He's a city kid, I'm a ranch kid. So it was really kind of fun to see us blend and still have this dynamic. So yeah, it was uncanny. We loved it. We didn't want to ever jinx it. So we just kind of like rode the wave, so to speak. But it was really special. Yeah, thank you.
We'll go here. This is kind of a Rob
We
Brown.
love that.
This
We
is
love
kind
that
of
jersey.
This is a Rob Brown look too, is it? No, this is Rob Brown
Robbie
here
Brown.
from back in the day.
Oh, I take that as a compliment.
There you go, for sure.
You're a very good
Yeah.
player.
Do you have any notable prank stories from your time with the Penguins? And may I get a selfie with you after the event?
Probably selfie is an easy one. Yeah, there was lots of stuff that, like, dressing room pranks were pretty much every day. Like, there was always something going on. Like, somebody put Campho-Phenique in the mouthwash. Somebody would put like a dye in the shampoo. A guy'd come out blue hair. And it was really kind of fun. Like somebody, who the heck was it? I think it was Paul Coffey, got his toes painted. He fell asleep on the training table. Somebody came in with a paintbrush and painted his toes. He woke up and he goes, "Oh boy, look at that! I'm ready for the runway." I mean, the pranks were pretty much every day. To pick one out of that, I think the best one I think was when they put baby powder in Scotty Bowman's horn. So Scotty had a drill where he'd bring out a foghorn, and it had a little aerosol button on the top, and he'd push it once, the white team would change. And if you honk, honk, if you pushed it twice, then the black team would change. And that was his drill, and we change on the fly kind of thing. And the guy stuffed it full of baby powder. So every time he pushed that button, this big pile of baby powder smoke would come out. He'd be looking at that thing, shaking it, tapping it on his leg, honk, honk, and poop puffs up, looking at this thing, what's wrong with this thing? I need a new aerosol horn. That was a pretty funny one for me. I enjoyed that one.
You'll like the Badger Bob Johnson stories in here as well. There's some good anecdotes. Red Toque back there.
I'm correct. You won this 82 Stanley Cup final, Game 4 here in Vancouver.
Yes, game 4?
Yeah.
Yes. What happened?
Could you just speak to us briefly? Where did you go? Like, what was the party? Was it just, where did you go after? How was it?
So here in Vancouver, we went.
Sorry, the question was. I'm sorry. The question
Yes.
was about winning the 1982 Stanley Cup in Game 4 in Vancouver and what they did afterwards to celebrate.
Yeah, in 1982, we were fortunate. We had just an unbelievable team, and I think what happened, we believe, is Vancouver took too many penalties. They were just overly aggressive, and our power play was red hot. And King Richard was outstanding. I mean, he saw 50 shots a game, and he still played outstanding. He could have been MVP of the playoffs, but it was our time, and so we win the cup here in Vancouver. It's the only cup we won on the road. So all the other cups we won in New York. So we got to party with the cup. So at the end of the game, it was very, very quick. Everybody dresses. We're getting on the plane because we want to get back to New York. It's going to take us 5 hours or 4.5 hours to fly back to New York, be with our families, our friends, our fans, and that kind of stuff. So we wanted to get back on the plane. And of course, the locker room's trying to celebrate, but we want to get on the plane. So, and as we all know, hockey players are not one to rub salt in the wound. We didn't want to like party in front of Vancouver or the Vancouver Canuck team. So we were a little subdued in that regard, the atmosphere here in Vancouver. Once we got on the plane, I mean, it was mayhem. It was like 4 hours of party the whole way, because we got to release that celebration moment of Stanley Cup. It was our third Stanley Cup. So we all knew what the Stanley Cup felt like and hoisting and all that stuff. So we got to do a little bit of that on the ice just out of tradition. But we really got to party with the cup as a team for that 5 hours. No family, no friends, no interruption. And it was very, very intimate. But it was 5 hours. We got off that plane. Guys were ready to go home and sleep it off. I mean, they were, it was a party. And so when we got to Long Island, our family and friends are ready to party. We're like, good night, we're going to take a little nap here. We've been partying for about 5 hours. So, and I think that happened to everybody. It happened to us twice in Pittsburgh, same thing. We got back to Pittsburgh and we were done partying because we won it in Minnesota and Chicago. And we partied, that whole way home. And guys are ready to like relax and kick back for a day and then go party again. The first time we got back to Pittsburgh, Phil Bourque said, okay, we're going down to the bridge. We're taking the cup down to one of the bridges, and it was like Fort Pitt Bridge, so we're going to party under the bridge. So we take the cup down there. All of us head down there. The whole team heads down there. From the airport, we land out there, it was like 4 or 5 in the morning. There's 30,000 people at the airport. They all follow us down to this bottom of this bridge, and we're down there, and we've got boats there. We're right across the river from Three Rivers. I don't make it home for 3 days. And I'm sleeping on people's boats and no cell phones. Remember the old block cell phones in the 90s? It was like a big brick. It was in my car. I'm alive. I'll see it. I'm trying to get away from these ding dongs. But and I saw Phil Bourque maybe a couple times during those 3 days, but the city of Pittsburgh just embraced us, and we just kind of partied with the whole city. They'd, come on my boat for 5 minutes, come on my boat, and we'll go here. We went up and down the Yacht, we went to the Monongahela, we're up to Allegheny, the Ohio, we partied on everybody's boat, but we partied under, there's 449 bridges in Pittsburgh. I partied under 400 of them in 3 days.
That's good. Balance, we go this side of the room. Gentleman back here.
Love your stories. Just curious about your relationship with the news media. A lot of athletes are intimidated by talking to reporters. And what were your dealings like, especially with the New York media?
Well, the media for me was, I by nature, I'm a little guarded. And that's another reason I wrote the book now. Like, I'm 66 years old, I'm done coaching, done playing, got no more secrets. I'm kind of an open book, no pun intended, but when you're playing, you don't want to give away any secrets. You don't want to give away what you're thinking. You don't want to tell the whole world exactly, because you're thinking, oh my God, I don't want to anybody to figure me out. So it's not that you have a bad relationship with the media, you respect them, but I think overall, I think the media will say the same thing. I was very guarded. I was like on 1-2 word answers. But at the same time, I knew they had a job to do. And when it's all said and done, and I would always thank the media, I'd say, yes, my friends in the media, because they are our friends, because we love the media for a whole bunch of reasons, because of all the thousands of wonderful articles our Islanders had and all the wonderful things they said about me and my teammates. There's a couple of guys that probably didn't like me, and there's probably a couple of things bad. I say, boy, I'm on the high end when it comes to like great things being said about me from the media. So I really have a lot of love for the media and a whole bunch, television, newspaper, magazines, no matter what. I don't know how I do in this internet world with social media. I'm still very guarded there, but I think all of us recognize, I think they all have a job to do, and I think things get magnified a little bit, exaggerated sometimes, but I think there's a job that they have to do, and I respect that, and certainly I think overall, I think they've learned to kind of like figure me out a little bit too along the way, so here I am, you know. They all have my number, so I don't mind talking to them now.
I know we had one over here, gentleman over on the far side.
Yeah, Bryan, I had the privilege of watching you play your last final year of junior in Lethbridge, my home.
Oh, thank you.
I haven't read the book yet, but I'm curious if you have memories of playing in Lethbridge, playing in junior, what that was like for you.
For anyone who didn't hear the question, just asking about Brian's final performance in Lethbridge as a junior hockey player that this gentleman was able to attend.
So I had 2 wonderful years in Swift Current, my age 16, 17, and I finished my last year in Lethbridge, and I had Earl Ingerfield as a coach. The Sportplex, I don't know what it's called now, was brand spanking new. I was out in the middle of nowhere then. Now I think it's all engulfed in the city now. I went back a few years ago. And Lethbridge was a spanking little town. I mean, it was, my fondest memories of Lethbridge is they cheered win, lose, or draw. Like, they were so excited to have junior hockey, and we were just a bunch of kids making mistakes and trying our best and trying our hardest. Earl had us playing really good hockey. We had a good year. I had a great year. Earl played the heck out of me. I mean, it was just a wonderful city in a whole bunch of reasons. We had a wonderful billet, a young couple, newlyweds, believe it or not, Jerry Banks and I, and we had a wonderful time there. Like, the whole experience in Lethbridge was nothing but great. I bunked in with Gary Kirk, who has the tire company there. I lived with his family for a little bit. We lost Gary recently, so that whole experience in Lethbridge was just spectacular. My favorite memory of Lethbridge is leaning into that wind every day, trying to walk into that building, because there's a 40-mile-an-hour wind, doesn't matter what day of the week it is, it's constant. Yeah, so like that was kind of fun. That constant little breeze that goes through Lethbridge is pretty fun.
And we get time for one more question. Gentleman in the back.
Who was the top face-off man you ever saw?
Who was the top face-off man that Brian ever saw?
I've got some good face-off stories. Some of them aren't in the book. So Stan Mikita was my first face-off was against Stan Mikita, Chicago Blackhawks, exhibition game. And I'm really bearing down because it's Stan Mikita, number 21. One of my idols growing up, you know, Stan Mikita, Bobby Hull center, 1961 Stanley Cup. I'm like, this draws mine. I'm a rookie. I'm going to make my mark against Stan Mikita. He's a righty, I'm a lefty. I pull it back, win it clean. Stan Mikita's stick is right in my face like this is all right. I took every face-off after that, like, yeah. Good face-off, Stan. He won every draw after that. But I learned a lesson. That's you use that trick against the other rookies, you know, you play against. Probably the best face-off guy, and the best, I'll give you two toughest guys, and this is not just face-off. Daryl Sittler is the best guy that I ever, like, Daryl taught me how to be a professional. Like, when I got into the league, I was a rookie, I played against Daryl, and it was a 60-minute battle. And the thing I loved most about Daryl, he was like 4 or 5 years in the league, he's an established superstar. I mean, he's the leader of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And here's a guy who plays hard, he plays physical, every face-off matters, every battle in the corner, he bangs, he bumps, he scraps. I'm like, I got out of that game, I was exhausted. I said, that's how a professional plays. I love playing against Daryl. He taught me that that's how a centerman plays hockey in the NHL. I love that battle. He was the toughest guy that I faced on face-offs, 60 minutes, both ends, Bobby Clark, Mark Messig, close seconds. The toughest guy to play against was Larry Robinson because he's this big giant of a man. He's 6'4", 6'5", big reach, You can't get around him. Then when you do get in a corner with him, he's such a gentle man. And he's so strong and powerful. He takes you into the corner, pushes you against the wall, then lifts you in the air. I'm 200 pounds, and I'm dangling in the air. My legs are like this. My face is planted against the glass. The people on the other side are probably laughing at me because I can't move. I just feel like I'm stuck there, plastered against the glass. And then he gently lifts me. When the play's gone, he lifts me down. There you go, little guy. Where you go? I'm like, little guy. It infuriates you, that he's so polite about it. And then you meet him off the ice, and he's just the greatest guy you want to be. So you toughest guy to play against was Larry, because you bump him, he would just like pat you, good hit, kid. You're like, kid, what are you like? No, he was fun to play against.
That is Bryan Trottier, ladies and gentlemen.
Can I say something?
Yeah. Bryan just wants to say one last thing. Go ahead, Bryan.
So I want to thank you guys for all coming out. Like, I love coming to Vancouver for a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, it's a great city, beautiful city. My daughter came, we had the chance to enjoy it here for the last day and show her around this beautiful city. But the fans, the hockey fans, we come in here and it's just a great atmosphere. And to be able to talk hockey with you guys tonight just brings back a lot of memories. I'm very proud of the book. I tell everybody it's the best Christmas gift going. But for me, I call it a labor of joy for a whole bunch of reasons, but it came together so well. The last edit, I call it the last edit because there was quite a few, but the last edit was spectacular. I called Lindsay up, I was like, this is a great book. I mean, it sounds like me. When I read it, I can hear myself talking. But it's just a wonderful tribute to my Canadian roots, and you guys are a big part of it. You're a big part of my history. I've enjoyed every game I played against Vancouver in the city, and a great experience. No, it wasn't because we always won. Believe me, my buddy Tiger left a few marks on some of us Islanders. But no, it's just it's a pleasure to spend an evening with you folks, and I hope you really enjoy the book. Thank you very much for coming, guys.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you.